Hi, I'm Joe Farace. Welcome to Joe's Movie Club. Today we're going to talk about a movie that some of you have been asking me to talk about in some previous comments, and that movie is War of the Worlds 4K from Paramount Presents. So let's talk about it right now. Well, I'm not much of a double dip guy, but I know a lot of us, including myself, went out and purchased this Blu-ray of War of the Worlds as soon as it came out. I don't think I really had any copy of War of the Worlds in any kind of media. I never had a DVD of the film. I'd only seen it in the theater, but I knew that if I wanted to get a copy, it would have to be something high-res like this Blu-ray. And I was very pleased with how this looked. We'll talk about how it matches and how it holds up against the 4K version from Paramount in a few minutes. Let me tell you about my connection with War of the Worlds, besides being a fan of it since I was a little kid. As I mentioned in my review of When Worlds Collide, which is a double feature as part of the Paramount Presents 4K release for War of the Worlds, I went to see both films with my wife, Mary, on our very first date 40 years ago. I asked Mary if she would sit down and watch the 4K version of the movie with me. And the difference between dating and being married for 40 years is, she said, no, I don't think so. So I watched it by myself. But there's more to my personal connection with War of the Worlds than just our first date, but that does hold a special place in my heart. I have a friend, his name is Steve Crucian, and he is better known as Mr. Gadget, and I'll put a little link below here to his website. And he's a guy who is expert at gadgets and computers and all kinds of stuff. I mean, he's a guy we talk to when we want to know what kind of vacuum cleaner to buy or what kind of paper shredder to buy. He's the guy, and he has those answers. He has a great website. You should go to it. So when I first met Steve, I said, boy, that's an unusual name. The only other Crucian I knew was Jack Crucian. He said, well, he's my father. Now, for those of you not familiar with character actors, Jack Crucian was, I think he was in 200 movies, I think Steve told me, an untold number of TV shows. He was nominated for an Oscar for his performance in The Apartment. So if you watch The Apartment with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine, he's the next door neighbor who's a doctor who treats Shirley MacLaine when she tries to kill herself. So he got nominated for the Oscar. He did not win it. It went to Martin Balsam for his very small performance before he gets stabbed in the head in Psycho. But it's too bad Jack never won an Oscar. But Steve told me the thing that he is most famous for, the thing that people would talk to his dad about, was War of the Worlds. Now, he's only in War of the Worlds in the first, 20 minutes of the movie, because there is a prologue. We'll talk about the prologue in a few minutes. He's only in the movie in the live action portion, 15 minutes or 20 at the most. And he is one of the three men who the sheriff sends out to what they called in the book of War of the Worlds, the pit. So the sheriff sent these three guys out, and they were going to watch, see if there's any fires. And they're sitting around, shooting the breeze, and all of a sudden the hatch starts unscrewing on the ship, and a little thing sticks its head out, starts looking at them, and they think, oh, this isn't a meteor. This is from outer space. So these guys figured out right away, and you, the audience, though, too. And they think, well, let's go be friends. Welcome to Earth and all that kind of stuff. And so they get a white flag. They make a white flag, and they go, three guys march toward the ship saying, hey, we're your friends. Talk to us. Welcome to Earth. Do you want us to take you to your leader? I don't know what they say. Anyway, as soon as they get fairly close to the ship, it blasts them with a ray and melts them into piles of dust. So even though Jack only has a very tiny part of the movie, he's very critical to the plot because he's the first victim of the Martian invasion. But the other thing you have to ask yourself, am I double dipping? That whole double dipping thing freaks me out. So Criterion comes out I don't know, was it a year ago, 2 years ago? I can't remember. They came out with a Blu-ray of War of the Worlds. And as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to have it because I really wanted to get a copy of this on media that I could have and watch when I wanted to watch it. And it looks really good. It is really a pretty darn good transfer. But then Paramount comes along and says, no, we're going to give you not just War of the Worlds. We're going to make it in 4K, and we're going to give you a beautiful restoration of When Worlds Collide 2. Okay, here's the front, the actual front of the package, and it comes with your typical but clear plastic clasp inside. There's an inevitable coupon I never do anything with, and then 2 discs. Let's cut to the chase. War of the Worlds looks pretty good on the Blu-ray from Criterion, but it looks absolutely incredible, mind-bogglingly spectacular on this 4K release from Paramount Presents. It's absolutely amazing to look at, and it starts right away. As soon as you start to see the credits, you know this is going to be good. The film opens with a montage of matte paintings and some model work of some planets. And the matte paintings are by the famous space artist Chesney Bonestell, who I talked about in my review of When Worlds Collide. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll put a link down there somewhere, and you can check out that review if you missed it the first time. The matte paintings are absolutely spectacular. And I had thought in my memory of seeing the film the last time, which was with Mary 40 years ago, that it opened with the first lines of the book, which were that, the guys on Mars, they've been watching us. Things aren't too good on Mars, and they've been looking at us with, greedy tentacles. But that's not how it opens. It talks about what planets are good for life, and you see all these different matte paintings, and it's pretty nice. And finally they get to the dialogue that the Martians have been checking us out, and now they're coming, and they're angry. War of the Worlds, like When Worlds Collide, and I think all of George Powell's space films, including Conquest of Space, were shot in Technicolor. It's a complicated process. It uses 3 big bulky cameras with 3 different black and white films shot through different filters that enables them to get really spectacular prints, but also for us as collectors of media, it makes the absolutely most stunning transfers known to mankind. And believe me, as great as When Worlds Collide is, War of the Worlds is absolutely breathtaking. Sound-wise, it has a DTS audio that really sounds pretty good. It doesn't sound old. It doesn't sound muddled. Some people like to watch the original monaural, and I'm pretty sure, I can't remember, to tell you the truth, that you can watch it that way if you are a purist. I'm just a guy who likes movies, so show it to me whatever the default settings are on the disc, and that's the way I will watch it. I do poke around in the menus to see, but it sounds really good, it looks really good, and it's a good value too. If you bought a Blu-ray of When Worlds Collide, and if you bought the Criterion version of When Worlds Collide on Blu-ray, it would cost more than buying this package, which when I got it was around 27 bucks and change from Amazon. And I'll put a link below if you want to pick it up, and I really think you should pick it up if you're a fan of 50s sci-fi, because these are classic masterworks of the genre. 50s were a great time for both science fiction literature, I think, as well as science fiction films. And while Powell's film Conquest of Space, I remember seeing that when I was a kid. I'm thinking, what's all this stuff here? What is this crazy guy talking about? And I'm thinking, I don't get it. It's not like Destination Moon, which is, wow, don't we need a 4K version of Destination Moon? That would be awesome. Count me in on that one. So, hey, Paramount, send us 4K Destination Moon. Destination Moon is a wonderful film, and the first part of the Powell quadrilogy, if you want to call it that begins with Destination Moon. It goes on to When Worlds Collide, then War of the Worlds, and then the big flop that was Conquest of Space. Although the special effects in Conquest of Space, I thought looked pretty good at the time, but I haven't seen that film in a long time. But it gets criticized by all the movie pundits on YouTube as being not that good, as compared to, especially as compared to the effects. In fact, the effects budget for War of the Worlds was higher than the live action. And part of the reason they saved money is that Gene Barry, this was only his second film that he had made. And I think Ann Robertson, she was a contract player at Paramount, and Pal liked her and they put her in the role. So there are no real big stars in it when you compare it to, well, the Spielberg version. Now, let me digress a little bit, as I tend to do, and someone even sent me an email that said they like my little tangents. The Spielberg version with Tom Cruise is terrible. It's flat out not worth watching. And I think it's because if you look at the 4K version of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you'll see a documentary. And Steven Spielberg says when he made E.T. and when he made Close Encounters, he was a believer in UFOs. Now, he says he doesn't believe them. And I think that's reflected in the way he made War of the Worlds, which is these aliens are a bunch of bad guys. They're coming down to just destroy us. Instead of the cute, cuddly alien in E.T. or the real pleasant, nice guys, weird little dudes that they were in Close Encounters, these aliens, they just want to kill us. They're like the aliens in the original War of the Worlds. And I thought when I first started watching the Spielberg War of the Worlds, I thought, well, it's interesting. When Pal made War of the Worlds, he made it from the perspective of the insiders, the scientists, the military people, the people who were working to combat the aliens. When Spielberg made War of the Worlds, he made it from the perspective of the guy in the street, some people in New Jersey, interestingly enough, because of Wells, blah, 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 1939 radio broadcast. And so the movie starts out pretty good, and then it gets real crazy. And then when they go to the farmhouse in the Spielberg version, I tell my wife, oh, this is the cool part. This is where they run into the aliens. And in the Gene Barry version, the George Pal version, they run into aliens, and it's spooky, it's creepy, it's really great. The whole movie is great. But no, what Tom Cruise runs into in this farmhouse is a deranged Tim Robbins who's lost his mind and he's running around. What the heck has that got to do with anything? The only good part of that movie is when they get to where they were going, which was either his parents' house or his grandparents' house, and the people who greet them at the very end of the movie, when the aliens are all dropping dead from bacteria and stuff. The grandparents or parents are Ann Robinson and Gene Barry, which is really very sweet, but geez, 1 minute of sweetness for a whole movie of dreariness, but crazy special effects. I mean, the special effects in George Pal's War of the Worlds, the budget to do that was bigger than the budget of shooting the film. It's a terrific effects for the time. And the effects hold up really well. And especially in 4K, they look absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's impressive that this movie was made in the 50s. So if you have any interest in 50s science fiction, or if you love War of the Worlds like I do, then you owe it to yourself to pick up this 4K version, because you will be a very, very happy sci-fi fan when you watch it. You will be grinning the whole time, all the way through. And it's a remarkable film. And like a lot of films of its era, it's amazingly well assembled and edited. There's no fat in this movie. They didn't make it 3 hours long so you could just sit there and wonder what the heck is going to happen next. Like a lot of modern films seem to just be indulging the auteurs who are making these films. They made it taut. It's like King Kong in that respect. Every cut, every edit, it just moves the story along. As you can tell, I love this movie. I think you'll love it too. So thanks for watching. If you could find it in your heart during this holiday season to give this a like, or if you like, comment, please comment. And if you can subscribe. Maybe 2 or 3 more people will find this little dopey little channel of mine, and we can look at some other movies together. I'm getting ready to place my very first order with a British boutique disc maker who makes some films in all region and then some region B. And if you haven't got my whole shtick on region B and regions with Blu-rays, I'll put a link down below for that video that I did. But look for an upcoming video from me about these discs. I'm going to look at them one at a time. They're kind of mostly movies from the 70s and American films from the 70s. So join me to take a look at those shortly whenever it arrives. I'd be anxious to see how long it takes to ship the disc from UK to here. So thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you real soon. Thanks a lot. Oh, that's the back. I'm a dumb bunny. The front.